Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about things that have helped my endo symptoms. If you have not watched my other two videos, they should have gone up before this one. The one where I talk about my new endometriosis diagnosis, and then the second one talking about what I believe my endo symptoms have been over the last 15 years. Watch those first. They are sort of like they'll give you the information that you need to understand this video. I also want to say, I did not know that I had endometriosis until this year. Like, it's literally been like, I don't know, 6 months that I've known. All of these treatments were like years ago, or, they're from the past. I did not know that I had endometriosis. I probably likely did have endometriosis at the time that I did these treatments based on my symptom history. That's why you need to go watch the symptom video first. But because I have so many different diagnoses and so many different issues, it's kind of like there's a lot of speculation around all of this. But I'm hoping that this, because, I've known endo to be very, very severe. For most women. In my case, I don't think it has been extremely severe or as severe as other women have had it. And I think part of the reason is because of this stuff, because I was doing this stuff not knowing that I had endo. And I may have just accidentally helped my symptoms or prevented worse symptoms from happening. That doesn't mean that I'm in great shape. I am in pretty bad shape at this point. Again, I can't say that that's because of the endo or, anything like that. It could just be, could be both, could be overlapping symptoms. I'm not going to know until I, have surgery, which I haven't decided on yet. Surgery would probably be able to, if it removes all the endometriosis, then I would know, like, okay, these symptoms were endometriosis and these other symptoms, are not. And that's the only way that we'd be able to actually confirm that. But I want to put this information out there because I know that there are women that are very, very desperate for relief. I don't know if some of this could help them. Some of it may not, but some of it may give some women ideas as to just things that they could do in the meantime while they're waiting for surgery, or if they're too afraid to have surgery, kind of go through a process of elimination until you get to the point where you say, you know what, I have to have surgery. Surgery is basically the treatment for endometriosis. Birth control can help with symptoms of endometriosis, but it is not actually a treatment for it. It does kind of mask the symptoms or help the symptoms. For some women, it's a lifesaver. For other women, it's, it just kind of, you trade some symptoms for different ones. So surgery is basically like what you've got to do. You've got to go in there, remove the endo tissue, and sometimes even that doesn't completely help. So here are some other ideas in case there's women out there that are watching this video. I'm just out here, I've got the time. So something that happened the first time I noticed that my pain went down, the period pain, was my first round of IVIG. If you don't know what IVIG is, it's immune globulin. It's used for people that have immune deficiencies, and it's also used for some autoimmune illnesses. It is a potent anti-inflammatory as well, so it can bring down inflammation. I had a doctor put me on this in 2013, and I was on it for 12 months. And I noticed by the end of those 12 months that when I had my period, my cramps were not as bad as they usually were. Unfortunately, I did lose my insurance and I lost that medication. So I really, I did notice that my pain had improved, but it wasn't like I could be 100% sure, like, oh, that was it. I mean, it helped. But I always wondered, like, what if I was on it longer than that? Like, what else, I was very upset that I lost my insurance. That's a whole other story, but that always stayed in the back of my mind. Like if I would have stayed on it longer, I was supposed to stay on it longer, what more it could have done. And we'll get to that in a second. It did take about a year though. It takes a while for the pain to start coming down, or at least noticeably. I still had to take Advil. If you don't know what Advil is, it's ibuprofen. I still had to take it to help with pain. Have not been pain free the way I used to be when I was a teenager. I never had cramps as a teenager. So, it doesn't stop it, but I was like, that's the only thing besides Advil that has actually brought the pain down. The reason I figured out that it was the IVIG is because I lost my insurance and I stopped it. And as soon as I stopped the IVIG, my pain would go back up and I would also lose weight. The only time I would gain weight is on IVIG. As soon as I would be off of it, I mean, within a couple months, pain would come back. I would lose weight. It would take a whole year to see some benefit and just a few months to lose all of that. So that's kind of how I put two and two together. I only had a couple of episodes of severe pain per year, but I did have like cramps and stuff like that otherwise that would only be blunted by the ibuprofen. And it would be nice to not have to take as much ibuprofen because if you know anything about ibuprofen, it's really bad for your stomach, and I already have stomach issues as it is. So that was the first thing. So that was my first round. It only lasted 12 months, lost my insurance. Somehow 4 years later, because I started 2013, ended 2014, took me 4 years to get to my diagnosis of stiff person syndrome and to get back on IVIG, because IVIG is a treatment for stiff person syndrome. I was back on it late 2018. And this second round lasted 3 years. I did a combination. I started off with IV, very high doses of IVIG, and then transitioned to SCIG, which is just subcutaneous. That way I could do it myself, and just did, smaller doses per week. Right before that, my health again had taken a turn. I was having like very loose stools, SIBO symptoms. Those things can be related to endometriosis, which I didn't know. But again, I can't say for sure that that was the case for me. But I somehow found my way to the medication again. And once again, things, my GI symptoms were the first things to improve, not 100%, but I did notice bowel movements, stool normalized, and these IBS type symptoms and also like intestinal spasms and pain improved. And then of course, as time went on, the period pain started to come down again. And this time I was on it for 3 years. So I knew, I did notice that as more time went on, the pain did, continue to improve. It didn't completely go away, but I did notice, I'm like, yes, this medication is keeping the pain down. I also had a short 6-month break from BV when I started back on immune globulin. I've been struggling with BV for probably 8 years at this point. So it stopped for about 6 months, and then I started having the infections again. And immune globulin is supposed to help with infections, with getting recurrent infections. So it doesn't surprise me that it did help that. But the fact that the infections eventually came back, even while I was on IVIG, tells me that there's probably something else going on there that might be contributing to those infections. Endometriosis can be one of those things. So this was a 3-year situation. I did develop histamine issues during that time anyways, which really surprised me. And that's when I started losing my hair, even though I was on this medication. That's one of the things that always baffled me, is that this medication is very strong. If you know anything about immune globulin, it's a very strong medication. And, yes, I still, my health issues continue to progress, but sometimes the medication would eventually sort of kind of dial them back. So, I started having the histamine intolerance like late 2019. That was about a year after I started that medication again and started losing my hair. But then after a year, the hair loss plateaued. And then my hair started regrowing after that. So I know that that was probably also related to the immune globulin. My question was always, why did I develop that in the first place? Why did I still develop histamine intolerance and all these other issues? Well, endometriosis can also be related to stuff like that. I don't think the immune globulin was stopping the endometriosis from growing. I don't really know because I didn't know that I had it at the time. It calmed the pain and it probably brought down some of the inflammation. But if it's still there, in my mind, I'm thinking it was still there and it was still growing. It might have been growing slower, and the inflammation was, better, it was lower, but I don't think it was stopping it, because even birth control, I think birth control can sort of inhibit the growth, because birth control inhibits, I think it kind of like balances your hormones, or it can inhibit like certain hormones, it can regulate it. And hormones, I think, are kind of what drives endometriosis. IVIG, I don't think, I don't know how it affects your hormones. It's not something that is used for hormonal regulation or anything like that. So I am willing to bet that it does not slow or stop the growth of endometriosis. But again, I don't know. I don't know enough to really come to that conclusion. I still was taking Advil, but I was taking less Advil to manage the pain. I gained back a little bit of weight. I did not see a lot of improvement in my PMS during this time, from what I can remember. My PMS could last 10 days before my period. So I would have noticed if my PMS would have improved. And I do think that endo makes your PMS worse. So that was kind of also baffling to me. Like, my pain is going down, but my PMS doesn't seem to be improving all that much. And remember, I started developing night sweats and all of that sometime in my early, I want to say in my early 30s, not even my mid 30s. And I was on this medication like mid 30s ish. My acne, I think, does improve a little bit on IVIG, but not completely. I'm starting to wonder if acne could be related to endometriosis as well. So, if you've been with my channel for a while, you will know that in 2022, I decided to, I had to stop the immune globulin because I was going to try exosomes. If you don't know what exosomes are, they are like stem cells. It's a part of the stem cell. So instead of giving you the entire stem cell, they only give you this component of the stem cell. It's considered safer. I have, I think, an exosomes playlist on here. You can go watch that. It was a hot mess. Go watch that playlist. I'm not going to go through the whole thing on that. Here's the one thing, and I don't remember super clearly, but some of these treatments kind of overlap. But I want to say that when I did the exosomes, they caused a lot of other issues that, it did not improve my health, my general health. All of these treatments, though, they had some effect on my period, or what I thought was my period. It probably, at this point, it was the endometriosis. And I think the exosomes were the thing that had the most effect on my PMS specifically. They did not help with my pain, which I think is really funny, because IVIG helped with pain, not with PMS. And then when I did the exosomes, that seemed to help with PMS, possibly. The one thing that I've noticed with my PMS is that, whereas it was 10 days long before my period, it now starts to overlap. It started to overlap more with my period. So instead of like 10 days before, it would be like a few days before, or even just like the day before, and then I would get the symptoms on my period. For example, the night sweats and things like that. My night sweats have been consistently lighter. They have not completely gone away, although I have had periods where I don't get them. I had one recently, but we'll talk about that in a second, because that might be due to something else. But I want to say that the exosomes, that's kind of when I noticed the PMS symptoms improved a bit. My sleep improved with the exosomes. So you know, I can't say for sure it was the exosomes, but my sleep improved after that because my sleep was never great. And then I think the insomnia, because I would get really bad insomnia with my PMS. And that seemed to have improved as well, in the sense that it's not as severe, or it's on and off. I don't get it every single time. The BV also stopped for a few months when I did the exosomes, which I thought was really funny. And so I think I had a few months. I don't know if it was 6 months or 3 months or whatever, but I did notice that the BV issue kind of stopped for a little bit after the exosomes, and then it resumed. It came back after. And again, I did not know that I had endometriosis. I'm pretty sure that exosomes do not contribute or stop the growth of endometriosis. So keep in mind that during this whole time, this thing is probably just growing and growing and growing. And I'm unaware of it, because these things don't stop it from growing. Like I said, birth control might slow it down, but from my understanding, birth control does not stop it from growing either. There's not enough research. Doctors don't know the mechanism of action behind endometriosis, so I don't think they can really stop it from growing until they know what's causing it. So then, if you remember, after the whole exosomes fiasco, I decided to go to Mexico, because I kind of wanted to know a little bit more. They use exosomes and stem cells extensively in Mexico, and I was kind of curious. They were not going to use them again on me. They said, you didn't respond well the first time, you're probably not going to respond well again. And so we did other treatments. I went to a place called Holistic Biospa. I should have an entire review on this channel of that clinic. So find it somewhere. I did reviews of lots of different clinics, but this was the only one that I actually went to and got treatment at. And so if you want to know, I've also done like mini reviews of the types of treatments that I got. So I'm not going to go into detail on all those treatments. My channel has, shorter videos where I describe the treatment and what it did for me. So, again, not aware that I have endo at the time. And this was in 2023. So this was just a couple years ago, about 2 years at this point. And I went to see if it would help improve my general health and bring me back down to baseline, because the exosomes had caused a bit of a flare, in some of my neurological symptoms and just my general, I don't know. I just wanted to just come back down to baseline. I knew I wasn't going to get better. I did not expect any of these treatments to get me better. I was just looking for a little bit of relief, or to come back down to baseline, just a little bit of a reset, because I was just, I was exhausted from dealing with this stuff. I also started getting sinus infections at that time. I believe early 2023, I started getting the recurrent sinus infections. We are now in 2025 and I'm still getting them. So I went to Mexico. I went to this clinic and they did a wide variety of things. 10-pass ozone, infrared saunas, Myers cocktails. I did NAD IVs as well. I have many reviews of all of these treatments here on my channel. I didn't really expect anything. I didn't notice anything. The nurses would tell me, they're like, don't you feel refreshed? Don't you feel more energy? Don't you? And I was like, I don't feel anything. I don't feel anything at all. I would get back to my my Airbnb exhausted, and I would just like nap. And I was like, whatever. I spent the money. Oh, well, I'm here. It was a vacation, right? I hadn't been on a vacation in a long time. So I was like, at the very least, it's a vacation. The one thing that I did notice, and this was something that I was very concerned about for this trip, was my period, because they did perform colonics and stuff like that. And one of the colonics was going to coincide, I think, with my PMS. And I was really panicking because I know that my pain, because I stopped the immune globulin, I knew my pain had gone up. I did not want anything in or near my pelvic area, but I had paid for all of this. They schedule it for you. So you have to be at the clinic 9 a.m. and then, you have a series of treatments for the day, and then you have the rest of the day off. I was terrified that, my period was going to ruin the trip and that I was going to have to stop some of these treatments. and I had a colonic. I had a colonic that was going to hit right there on my like PMS or like when I start my period. I surprisingly did not have severe pain. I always have to take Advil. It was manageable. The colonic was manageable. I don't recommend colonics, to be honest, but everything was manageable. And I was like, wow, this is. Keep in mind, I also had IV fluids going in and, all that kind of stuff. So that probably helped. But the real testament is that I'm sitting here 2 years later and my pain has not gone back up. I was on immune globulin when an immune globulin is very, very strong. But the moment I would stop taking the medication, my pain would go back up. It has been 2 years, almost 2 years exact, since I went to this holistic clinic in Mexico. My pain has stayed relatively stable. Keep in mind, I have an endometrioma on my right ovary that continues to grow slowly, but my pain has maintained stable. I still have pain. I still have to take Advil, but it is much more manageable. I can take much less Advil. My PMS has also stayed, better. Although I did have a recent bout where it was like 5 days of PMS, which was pretty long compared to what I've had recently. My pain does seem to kind of fluctuate. Things are less predictable now, but less severe. And keep in mind, it's been 2 years. I haven't done these treatments. I've been getting lymphatic drainage here and there, but I have not kept up with the treatments that I had in Mexico. Some of them you can do here, like a Myers cocktail, things like that. So I don't know what these treatments do. I don't know what, I couldn't even say. But the fact that I found out this year that I have an actual endometrioma, which is a cyst related to endometriosis on an ovary, and my pain has still maintained itself manageable, is really a testament to whatever these treatments do, because nothing else has given me improvement, long-lasting improvement like this. Even the IVIG. The IVIG I have to be on consistently in order to have, in order to keep the pain down. And that didn't really have an effect on my PMS. Now, did these treatments help anything else? Did they help my GI symptoms or anything like that? No. Did they stop the infections? No. So there's still a lot of other stuff that I'm dealing with. But pain-wise, I don't know. I don't know if it was just a coincidence. Like I said, I did not know that I had endometriosis until this year. But I will say it was worth it. I think I paid like $7,000 for all of this stuff, which is better pricing than what we would have here in the US. Some of these treatments you can't really even access here in the US without a prescription or, whatever. So again, I'm not pain free, but I'll take it. I'll take this. It was worth the $7,000 for me. But I do continue to live with that fear that the pain is going to come back. And because I have this endometrioma and because I probably have endometriosis in other areas, I can't sit here and say, that this is going to last forever. It's been 2 years. So I'm happy about that, and I'm forever grateful for that. But I always fear, because when I first developed the pain, it came out of the blue. It was not like I had some kind of a warning or my previous periods were terrible or anything like that. It felt like it just happened. So I'm not ruling that out, especially because endometriomas do grow. I'll do another video on what those are. But I just wanted to put this information out there for those of you that may be desperate or that may be able to travel still and want to explore something else. This may be an option for you. Like I said, it did not fix everything, but it did seem to do something for the pain. I don't know if it was a combination of everything. The fact that I did exosomes prior to that and then IVIG prior to that. It could possibly be that, I just hit it with a barrage of different things because they were pretty consecutive, as consecutive as these treatments can be. That's another possibility. But either way, like I wanted to put this information out there because I know that there are women that are just suffering worse than I am. And if I can offer anything, any kind of something, any little something, I'll do my part to offer that. So, anyways, thank you for joining me. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.